This is one of the concerns I received from a father who is trying to raise his kids in an Indian household context. I feel stuck between my parents, my wife, and my kids. My parents try to discipline the children. My wife thinks they're being too harsh, and somehow I end up being caught between my parents, my wife, and my kids. And somehow I end up being the bad guy with everyone. This sounds like a parenting issue, but it's not so straightforward, especially when it comes to cultural context. Let the conversations begin. But in many families, especially who have different cultural context, it is much bigger than that. Young parents often rely heavily on grandparents for childcare, cooking, school pickups, emotional support, and simply managing everyday life. But here is the contradiction. We want grandparents to help raise our children, but we don't always want them to parent our children, right? We want them to support us until we find our rhythm when it comes to this huge thing called parenting. It is such a nerve-wracking journey, isn't it? Parenting is not um, for the faint-hearted. And that's where things get complicated. Because many families aren't built around completely equal voices. Not everyone has the same say in the family. Age carries authority. Many parents expect respect from their adult children, even though they're fully grown adults, they're married, they're earning their own money, or they're raising the family on their own. Respect is something that is a must in many households, especially because the concern is around Indian context. It's pretty common there. And sometimes even the financial dependency doesn't change the hierarchy. A son might be financially supporting the parents, but still feels unable to say, Mom, Dad, I don't agree with the way you discipline my child. Because what should be a parenting conversation can quickly become, are you disrespecting your parents? And the wife might be feeling, why can't my husband stand up for his family, for his own kids? And the husband here is trapped between, oh, my parents raised me. How can I go and speak to them like that? And also, he's also thinking, I now have my own family. I should be able to do this. And the children, they're all watching this. Even though the concern originally felt like it's a parenting thing and the child is behaving badly, but what it is actually exposing is a much deeper family struggle. Who has authority? Who gets to decide what? Whose parenting values matter? And where does the one generation role end and another begin? And perhaps the solution isn't always having a family gathering together and having a conversation around it. It might not be culturally realistic. You can't just go and confront a parent in many households. It is not something that is appreciated, right? Direct confrontations. It's not. Yeah, it is not applicable in many households. But sometimes the first step is much smaller. This is where the couple needs to privately sit together and agree on what they are comfortable with and what they aren't comfortable with. And then Find a respectful, culturally workable way to communicate that boundary. Not saying, oh, your parents are the problem, but saying, how do we protect our parenting choices without making your parents feel rejected? That is something you can talk when you're in private with your wife or husband. Because that isn't simply about grandparents disciplining children. It's about a family trying to renegotiate power across generations without breaking the relationships that is holding the family together, right? That is making the parents' life a little bit easier by having the grandparents in the household. But I think there is another layer that needs to be addressed here because our children are growing up in a completely different world. Technology or screens aren't just for entertainment. It's how they learn, how they communicate, how they acquire knowledge, right? They're very much part of our everyday lives these days. It's part of our it's part of grandparents, parents, and the kids, right? Everybody is on screens um, in this generation. Okay, they may think so. Parents, even though grandparents are using screens, they are understandably uncomfortable with this. They are they may think we grew up without phones, social media, and all these screens. Why can't children just simply follow what we are telling them? We have so much life wisdom. But children today have a very different relationship with information. They can question that, they can research it, and they can come up with a completely different perspective within seconds, right? And sometimes what one generation calls discipline, another generation may experience it as controlling and hurtful behavior. It can quickly turn into a trauma for many kids, and that can be very dangerous, right? And this is something that isn't taught much in the current context because it is making things a bit more complicated. Because grandparents may be thinking, I'm correcting the child because I love them. Parents may be thinking, I want my child to grow up with a different kind of discipline, right? And the child might be thinking, why should I accept this just because you're older? Now you can see there is a clash between three different ideas of respect, authority, technology, and parenting that is happening in the same household. This is a big thing to address. And perhaps the answer isn't to say, oh, grandparents' thinking is outdated or children today are way too sensitive. Both are an easy conclusions. The harder question is saying, can we preserve this love, this wisdom, and the good parts of the older generation while allowing the next generation to grow differently? Because many parents um, just parent their kids by what they witnessed and what was just used on them by their parents, right? Those are the techniques that just are conditioned into our brains. But every child is different with different needs and different sensitivities. Some parents just need to ask, what should we carry forward and what should we change? And maybe that is the conversations families need to have. If you think this video has made you stop and think, please subscribe because I will be bringing more of the real concerns from real people into this series that might be very useful for you and for me. I'm learning a lot from this too. So So please subscribe. And if you need a more private and confidential consultation, you will find my details in the description. Please contact me there. Thank you.